live in like 1 second. Hello, everybody. Oh my goodness, 5 minutes late. We've had some ridiculous energy, we've had some ridiculous energy issues, haven't we, Kate?
Just a bit, yeah.
So we've had some technical issues. I think retrograde is still happening. But yeah, so welcome whoever is here. I'll give people a minute to join. Okay, we have 3 bodies here at least.
Yes.
Please say hello when you join. Say hello. So put up a little thing there to let us know you're here and maybe even where you're like joining in from. That would be great because I think that's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So hi, Mary. Mary's here. Say hello. There we go. And oh, wonderful. Hello, everybody's popping in now. Oh, Janessa and Vanessa. Oh, wonderful. Oh, thank you. Good stuff. All right. Okay, good. Wonderful. Thanks everybody for being here. Okay, so welcome. Whoever doesn't know me, my name is Keri-Anne Livingstone. I'm a coach, a speaker, and an author in progress, and I help people navigate through life, death, and all the WTFs along the way using a step-by-step process that I call daring to suck, which is tuning in and into like yourself, speaking up what's inside of you and amplifying it out into the world, because I think that's where all your stuff, that's where all the magic happens, and to let go of the outcome. So to actually live in the process and to learn from that place. So that is what I do. Why I'm here is because I want to have these really rich, raw, and radical conversations that I think are very much needed in the world. And I like to bring in people that I've met or that I've heard of that I think are walking the edge, is what I like to call that, where they're like in the work and they're on the work at the same, not their own work, but they're in their own version of the work and then they're delivering it in a very authentic way, and just people that I fall in love with. And Kate Marolt is one of those people.
Yay!
And I'm going to make sure our names are here because that makes sense so people know who we are.
Great.
Right? And because that would be great. So we can address Kate by her real name. And because of all the technical issues, if you're just new to joining, we just had some major, like she couldn't hear me and I had to like literally log off and reboot, blah, blah, blah. Here we are. And I'm so glad. So we're a little bit late, but I do want to introduce Kate. So Kate, I met in San Antonio in late February, early March. And we had never met before, but I'd heard of her through other people. And I don't know, I didn't have like anything drastically like impressed upon me. It was just like, oh, she seems like a really lovely person. And then we lived together for like 3 days. So we intersected at a very incredible time. And there was a lot of energy work that was happening with us individually about what we were noticing in our own lives. And I just intersected with Kate at a really magical time. And I'll give a little bit of information about who she is. She's the founder of Unbound Living. She's a transformational embodiment coach. It's all about like movement and feeling things in your body. She's a teacher, she's an artist, and she guides women to becoming the most magical, badass versions of themselves through mastering their energy and transforming their relationships with their bodies and exquisite self-care. So thank you for being here, Kate.
Yay, thanks for having me.
So I don't know if there's anything you could do to help frame this conversation in the way that you do. I'll give a little bit of backstory. In the mornings in San Antonio, Kate we would stand together and she would bring me into a process that she just did so naturally about paying attention to her energy, nurturing her energy, and setting herself up for a really effective and impactful day, and in a way that she was really taking care of herself. So because we've had a bit of like something, there's something in the air of like, would you be comfortable setting us up a little bit like you would in the mornings in San Antonio?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
And let everybody on the call, let them know what's available to them here.
Yeah, so if you're watching this or listening to this and you have the availability to stand up and close your eyes, I recommend that. If you do not have that availability, this will still work. Just putting that out there. I like to have that.
I might stand up.
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Look at this.
Okay, beautiful.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Awesome. So just take a minute and take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Do that again. Breathing in deeply, filling up through your belly, through your lungs. Yeah, releasing, dropping your shoulders as you exhale, letting your belly be soft. Feeling your feet on the ground, as much as possible, feeling all the edges of your feet, feeling your toes, feeling your heels. Rooted, solid here. And so anything that has happened before this, anything that may be happening later today, anything that is present right now that does not belong to you, that is not helpful for what you desire, what you're working toward, that is not here for your highest good and your highest self. We're just going to imagine it all. You don't have to know what it is, but imagine it all draining out of your body, draining through your feet into the earth. So imagine there's like little particles just leaving your body, leaving your cells, leaving your system. Do that. Do a couple of deep breaths here. Just imagining it trickling down from your head all the way down. Anything is just like, it's like pulling out of the bottoms of your feet into the earth. Because the earth can take any energy and turn it into whatever she wants. So she's going to turn that into whatever love, whatever nourishment is needed for her and for you. Okay, and then in this moment, I'm going to call all of your energy and power back to you. So anywhere your energy, anywhere your power has gone, you don't have to know again where it is, but anywhere it's gone to social media, to other people, to your work, to your commute, to events, to your email, like anywhere your energy has gone. In this moment, we're going to call it all back to you. So you can imagine all those little particles zooming back into your body. Breathe. However you want to feel as that energy is coming back, however you want to approach your day, however you want to show up in your life, feel what that feels like in your body. Like, for example, if I want to feel calm and present and clear, what does that feel like? And can I bring that in with my own energy? For me, that feels like my shoulders are naturally back, down away from my ears. I feel like I can breathe easily. My feet feel rooted. I feel balanced. I feel grounded. So whatever feeling you want to bring that in now. With every inhale, amplify that energy. So increase that potency of that feeling in your body. Anything that does not allow that, we're going to clear it all out of your system. Send it down into the earth. Imagine it just draining out of your feet. So you're constantly drawing in what is yours, what you want, and releasing what you don't want, what isn't yours. Take one more deep breath. Thank you. When you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them. Yeah, and keep that connection to your feet, because sometimes I can get a little like lightheaded-y. That's not a word, but it is now. Mm-hmm. So keep that connection to your feet, even as you're listening to this, even if you're moving around. So that energy continues to ground and settle into your space. All right.
Okay.
Now we're here.
All right. So if anyone did that with us, can you please share what you're experiencing right now? So I'm going to share. I feel like I can feel my pulse everywhere. That's what I feel like I can feel. Almost a little vibraty or shaky, even in my fingers. Like even in like a pulse. I can feel like this pulse.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. So yeah, anybody please share in the comments. We've got, almost, 8 or 9 people here. So I want to talk to you about what we just did.
Yes.
Because talk about jumping right into it. I'm really glad we did that, actually, because why not? Don't dick around. Let's
go
right to the thing that we're talking about. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Vanessa, thank you, is saying, I feel more clear and less distracted. Yeah,
Awesome.
very much so. So what I notice is, because I was like really not grounded. I was, it's rattly, it's like really frazzly when you want to present something and it doesn't go the way you want. And you can just feel your energy kind of like going out to everywhere else, but like in you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you noticed, but while I was doing it, my body started to rock back and forth. And if anyone's watched the first episode or the second episode actually with Chris Durkees, when I worked with him, that would happen. He took me through a session where it was embodiment, but it was embodiment without guidance, like without like, hey, like move your body this way or hold a stance this way. It actually surrendered. I surrendered to say, okay, to my body, what do I need? And it was, and then what happened next was as if I was having this really crazy chiropractic session, and my body was like swinging into like positions like quite quickly, and then I would hold it and I would just breathe. I would totally surrender to it. And sometimes it would rock from heel to toe, to the point where I'd almost feel like I would stumble forward. I'd have to catch myself. Like it would get kind of that actually happened when I was doing that. And I was like, oh, there it is again. What's your experience of that? And what would you call that?
Yeah. I don't know what I would call it. Maybe that'll come to me as I'm speaking. But I know like our bodies, they know exactly what they need to heal themselves. All they really need from us is presence and acknowledgement and like space and time to do that. And, when we're doing this, like when we're doing energy clearing or connecting to our bodies and like creating that space for our bodies to heal, it's really fascinating because we don't actually have to do a lot. Our brains are going to want to try and take over and like figure it out. And like, that's why I very specifically say we don't need to know where this energy is coming from or like whose it is or where, because we could be like, oh yeah, my energy went here and here and here and all of that. Right. We don't actually need to know. What we're doing is we're sending it all out. So you're creating like that void where all of other people's stuff was in you, and then bringing yours back so that it can come in. And so
the intentional dialogue around it is so powerful. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it creates that and I very specifically say like things that aren't here for my highest good or for what I want to cultivate, because like when there's a void, things are going to want to come in. And that's partly why we don't like space. We like to fill our lives and our minds and our everything, because space is different to us. Like it feels much safer to be like solid and like heavy and like doing all sorts of stuff. So what I find is really interesting is like our bodies store all of that, right? And so you're talking about like kind of like the rocking back and forth, or like I have a lot of, this is kind of a tangent. Like, I taught yoga for a long time and I still do it in various capacities, but I go much more toward like restorative lately, because if I go into poses and I'm not moving and I'm just breathing with my body, a lot of times little parts of my body will start to just like shake a little bit, or like I'll feel things in them. And usually when we feel something that's uncomfortable, we want to get out of it. We want to distract ourselves, right? But if you sit with it and let that stuff happen, like let your body move how it wants to move, it actually creates that space for whatever was being held there to release without ever knowing what that thing was. Like you might know, sometimes like memories will come up or thoughts will come up, but like you don't need to know.
You know how I love that you're saying that, because when people, I work with empaths, deep feelers, helpers and healers. It's a little alliteration there, but really all the people in that layer that they're deep feelers, they just feel stuff they know they're here to serve, or they have this, you kind of show up open, and there's this assumption that shows up of like, well, I must be here to serve, or I must be here to like help other people. And when it comes to this energy work, it's like, what's mine and what's theirs? That is always the first thing that they want to talk about. I want to know what's mine, what's mine, and what's theirs. And I kind of, what I blurt is like, it doesn't matter. It's in you. You feel it. So why don't we take care of like expressing it out or getting it out? and then start beginning again. So, and I feel like that's kind of what you're saying. It's like you could spend so much time to be like, well, that's from Aunt Marge, and that's from Uncle so-and-so, and that's from Sister so, and you could just be like, I keep a log. And then it's like, well, what's important about that? The most important thing is the fact that there's something in you that doesn't feel right. There's a dis-ease.
Yeah.
And that it is your responsibility. It is our responsibility as human beings having an energetic experience here. Because we can go into the ethers and talk about how we're all energy and like maybe lose some people there.
Right.
Which I don't want to do. But just understanding, I think there's an obvious, yeah, of course, we're energy. We feel, energy is, emotions are energy. And yeah, we have an energy pulse that our heart beats and all those things. But it's like, that's our responsibility. And so what I love about what you do is I don't know if it's the word ambiguousness, but it's just like, you just say, listen, you don't need to know, but just get it out of there. Wouldn't that be nice to get it out of there? And call back in everything you want. So the intention behind everything is so simple and clear and easy.
Yes.
And it bypasses the mind's like, but I need to know. What else would you say about that? That kind of addiction or that like impulse to like want to keep that?
Oh, everything. I have so many things to say about that. We'll see what comes out of my mouth. Yeah. But yeah, because that's totally me. I want to know why for everything. Yeah. I want to understand everything. And what I find though is that like desire to figure out why actually can become a little bit of an addiction in itself. Where like, we can get addicted to other people's energy patterns or like certain energy patterns of ourselves. But like figuring out what this thing is, it's assuming first that there's a problem. So it's assuming that there's a problem that needs to be solved or something that needs to be fixed. And then second, it's I'm not going to stop until I have fixed this. And only once I've fixed this, then can I do what I want to do.
Or instead of fix it, even understand it.
Understand it, yeah.
That's even like, it's like, okay, I don't want to fix it, but like, even if I could just understand it. And I do get caught in that language a little bit. When I say understand it, it's almost, to me, it almost just means like having it move through. Sometimes, well, actually, let's talk about this. Because you think that there are times, see, in my experience, my emotions, for example, I describe emotions as energy because they are that, and I hope to simplify them into the fact that it's like, if you thought emotions were you, like that, we'd be screwed, by the way, if our emotions were us, like the story of us in a way, like, I just say emotions are these charges that we hold in our body. And it is a simple energy charge. It's like we have an experience and there's an emotional response. And whether we honor it in the moment or not, it needs to move because that's all it wants to do. The emotions just want to move. That's the nature of energy, which is exactly in line with what you're saying. And I've had experiences, or what I notice when I help people is that there's something in going into it, honoring it, and by honoring it, to me, it's like the full expression of it. And this does kind of tie into what you said. So it's like the grippiness of understanding, which I guess what we're both saying is like really can screw us and keep us kind of stuck. Because it's almost, you almost feel like how insatiable that is. Like there's almost like, you almost never have enough information to like fully understand it. It's like the Russian dolls. It's like there's always another one. So there's that. And then there's this other thing that I think is important about expressing it and noticing. So my emotions have felt like a delivery system where they've delivered intuitive like memories. Like you said, maybe a memory will pop up and maybe there's something there. But to me, it's more like, wow, well, don't just like, to me, I think it delivers the next thing that I'm supposed to, when you start speaking the heart's or the body's language, which is energy, right? It's less like up in the head and like tactical. And it's more, what would you call it? Like abstract. Is that fair?
It's more like impressionistic. Sorry, artist has to have the right.
That's right. And so what I'm getting at here is to start learning how to tune in. That's what we're like tuning into the garbly, blah, 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 blah kind of energy that can be from the neck down as opposed to like living in the head. And in my experience, it's delivered like the most perfect little parables or the perfect little phrases or even pictures that I've been like, it's actually helped me tap into what people call your intuition, right? The heart's language. And when you said art, yeah, like it literally one day showed me a painting and I stayed curious. So I think that there's something about staying curious and like loosely gripped with the process of playing with your energy, or like partnering with it is probably a better maybe word.
Yeah, can I back up for a second?
Yes, please.
And what you were just saying that I want to get to.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I think, because speaking about emotions, I think I don't want to say it's not important to know where our emotions come from.
Yeah.
If there are other things in us, like sometimes I will very clearly feel anger that does not belong to me, for example. Mm-hmm. And I've learned to discern kind of what belongs to me and what doesn't. I know that's a whole process that we, you know, and it's like important to know how to clear out other people's stuff, which is what we started with.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a difference between, because if I'm angry about something, it's important to me to know why, so that I can express it. Because if I don't know why I'm angry, I can't express it. Sometimes I can. Sometimes it's just like I just need to like go to the gym and like box for an hour or whatever. But it's going to keep coming back until I can understand why it came up in the first place. But the thing is, when we get really attached to certain emotions, when anger becomes part of your identity, I'm so angry at this person because, and the story becomes more important than the feeling. That's, I think, when it gets problematic. When we're like, that's when you're talking about the Russian dolls, right? Like we can always find more to be angry about in a situation, or disappointed about, or frustrated about, or anxious about, or overwhelmed about, or sad about. You know, we can always find, if we want to hold, if that emotion has become embedded in our energetic system as part of our identity, then we're always going to be finding ways to feel it. Rather than, if you know where it comes from and you have the tools with which to express it safely, then it doesn't have to live in you, and it doesn't have to be like a cornerstone of your identity anymore.
Yeah. And that is, yes. And that's the addiction that I feel like I'm helping people move away from, because we get so attached to the story. But you need to know everything. But I need to express all the things that happened and how I was wronged, or how this happened, and da-da-da. Mm-hmm. And if I stop it right there and I say, with love, just right now, tell me about the anger. And then it's like, what do you mean? There's kind of it stops that, what I want to say is like that egoic attachment to, but it almost wants to feel like heard and all those things, to like, oh, okay, this is a different angle. It's a different door that we don't often go into. Like, just go right into it. Like, how does it feel? This is where embodiment, comes in. How would you hold your body if you were this anger, if you could express this anger in movement, or a texture, or a color, or what weather would it be? Right? It absolutely bypasses that, the story. Mm-hmm. Right? And what I feel like that does is it goes into the root of the energy, and it just honors the actual source energy of the anger. Mm-hmm. And allows it to be expressed. So the way I explain it in my sort of Daring to Feel module is like, almost like, when you go to the bulk food section of a grocery store. Mm-hmm. To me, I feel like we almost have these silo-y sort of, let's say one is anger and one is, joy, or, and so on and so forth, or disgust, or shame. And what happens is, each thing that happens to us, each story it creates, let's say it generates a feeling of shame or upset. That feeling will go into that bin, and it will start to like build up, whether, if you're not expressing it. And so what can happen, what I try to tell people is, if you only stuck with the story, you would only get that much out of the bin. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. As opposed to going to the feeling, and then you could like clear out like decades worth of kind of stored up energy around that. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I feel like that this actually hits on what a lot of people I think are afraid of in terms of feeling their feelings. Because I've heard countless times from people like, but if I go there, then the floodgates will open and I'll never be able to shut it. It's like almost like, same thing, right? If you like pull that thing down and like, oh my God, suddenly I have 3 pounds of granola and I wanted like a cup, right?
That's right.
Suddenly I have like a waterfall of shame and I really just wanted to like dip my toe in the water for a second.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important because like what you're saying is like, if you go to that feeling and you face it, and you have that courage to face it, like, yeah, it's going to feel like a lot at first. Like, it's super intense. Like, it's really intense. And that's why we don't do it by ourselves, like, on like in our apartment with nobody knowing that that's what's happening. That's why, like, at least for me, like, that's why I get support with that stuff. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to do that on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that there's sometimes this expectation that I hopefully try to like nip in the bud, which is like, this isn't a go pull down and get 3 pounds of granola, which you're never going to be able to eat one sitting. Yeah. But sometimes it's just even, like you said, dipping the toe in to know that there is a process, that a very different process that's available to even just wade into that, that we can do this gently. And that I guess what my hope is that over time, because I've sort of done that with myself. So I have actually done that a lot with myself. That's how it started. Was this weird 3-way, that sounds really inappropriate. It's a really inappropriate threesome with my emotions after a miscarriage, which was, I had a conversation. I let my victim, what I called her this victim, and I just was able to describe her so fully, and just actually, it was almost like character development. What does she look like? What's her posture? How does she feel? What does she say down there? What's going on for her? And then when she felt complete, it was a messy process. But I think the worth it aspect for me was I'm so tired of feeling in conflict in myself, where there's a victim that wants to just feel how she feels, and there's so much there, and then there's this like, I want to get on with things. Which actually embodied itself as like a bully at first. And then this really upset observer that was like pacing back and forth, like wanting everyone to be okay. Like it just, we all get along. But to have each of them feel heard, seen, expressed, which I share with, people I work with, it's just like, that alone, I started to understand, oh my gosh, they're not here to take me out. And at the root of everything, when everyone felt expressed, there was this underlying reason behind each one of their behaviors. Like the one that was pushing me, the one that was just wanted to cry, and the one that just wanted everybody to get along. They all wanted the peace. They all wanted peace in me, and they all loved me. It sounds crazy, but it's like aspects of self, right? They all actually wanted something better than what they were experiencing, but they also knew they couldn't quite get there without that full expression. So who knew? But to be witnessed and to have that sacred space with somebody, it amplifies it as well. Like that's because a lot of us, if we don't know how to be with our own emotions, to have someone do that with us almost demonstrates it. Would you say?
I find it's nice because one, you're not on your own.
Yeah.
And two, like we can't see our own blind spots. And having somebody help hold us and point them out and be there when we would want to quit and give up is like a very different experience. Yeah. Because there's the part of us, like every one of us has that part that's going to do whatever it can to make us feel comfortable and safe. And if we don't feel those things, it's going to try and find a way for us to do that. And usually that's by not going into those places.
Yeah. Because, that's the funny thing. I'm like, who would want to walk in the door called shame? Nobody. None of us are like, oh, can I go do that today? And yet there's something really powerful about not being, how would you describe that? It's like bound or dictated or like, yeah. We've got some comments here. Carolyn was just saying after the exercise, she felt really lightheaded, or feet were feeling heavy, but the rest of her feels light. Thank you. And oh my God, the emotions can be the identity. Huge breakthrough.
Totally. If your feet feel super heavy, like imagine like your feet and the earth, like you're kind of like slicing through that connection to the earth, because if it might feel like all that stuff is still pulling you down, it's like imagine that it's like cutting off your feet, so you're not still connected to that stuff. Not cutting off your feet, but like the bottom of your feet between you and the earth. Like imagine there's like a glass sliding under there or something.
Yeah. Wow. How are you guys feeling after, because we kind of went into that emotional element around energy and around, I guess, honoring our emotions. So yeah, we would love, does anybody have any questions so far? Like, how do I this, or what about that? That's what we're here for. But I love what you said. Okay, so there's a few things that I was hoping to cover, but we're not, I mean, there's so much we could talk about, right, Kate?
Of course.
I have so many questions because I'm only just starting to understand even more deeply about this energetic aspect and being more intentional, and definitely from connecting with you. But, any tips on how to connect? I guess I've got a few things. There's something about connecting with our energy, nurturing and honoring it, building it up. You did a great, like, just how you can like clear it out and then call it back in. What is your stance on protecting it? Because I have some thoughts around this, but I would
protecting
your energy. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you a little bit of background, is that I've heard, I've been in my own personal versions of like, I need to like white light myself. I need to like imagine myself in a bubble and make it like impermeable except for certain things, sort of thing. Like you hear a lot of stuff, mainstream spirituality, and there's a part of me that absolutely resists it. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So I would love to, what do you,
so I don't do any of that.
Okay. Okay.
And what I do instead is something that I got from Access Consciousness, which is like this whole system of working with reality and energy and magic and all this stuff. Like I'm in no way trained in it or whatever, but this is one of the things I learned like 2.5 years ago when I first started getting into it. Yeah. And it's rather than like seal yourself off in a bubble or like, keep everything out. Like, what if instead your energy just gets so big that everything is in your energy? Because, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. It's like if you're trying to create some sort of barrier between you and everything you perceive as bad, first you have to put energy in toward judging things as bad. And then you have to put energy into keeping them out. And then you have to put energy into anytime you perceive one of those things that is, in quotes again, bad coming in, then you have to like deal with the fear and the adrenaline that comes in. It's like, oh my God, somebody else's stuff is in me. I have to get the bad stuff out. That's a lot of energy going toward what you have decided is bad. So that's a lot, right? And I'm kind of tired just thinking about that. Like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, there's so much stuff in the world all the time. Yeah. That if we try and like protect ourselves from it, we're also shielding off a lot of the good, no matter what you say. Like, oh, but I put up a barrier that only lets positive stuff in. Like, did you though? Like, did you really? Like, is that what's actually happening in your life? Or like, and sometimes like the negative, again, I'm putting some quotes because we decide what we see as positive and negative, and like it has a purpose. If it comes in, then it's there to tell you something. Like, I think everything is here to support us. Everything is here for us. Like, if someone's negative energy affects me or whatever, like that's an opportunity for me to look at, why did that affect me? What about what's going on in me connected to that? Why? And like, there's a space to look at that. That's like kind of a whole other tangent that I could get into for a long time. But I think it's important to look at that. Like if we try really hard to keep out the bad, we're putting a lot of energy into keeping something out that we're then acknowledging has a lot of power. And that sounds like a lot of work.
It does. That's how I've been holding it. And I have no diploma in any of this. I have no degree. I just have this. I've heard, a few people talk about what you've just said, and I'm like, yes, like that's kind of how I feel about it. And I'm wondering if there's, sort of a blind spot that I'm just, and that's for me to maybe follow up on with a few people about like, when is that useful to protect ourselves? Like how, right? So I don't know, because there are some people that really do hold it. They really do hold that. So I agree, because I guess part of me is like, we didn't come here to be winged beings. We didn't come here to be like, even though I feel like we are already that, we're just in this like hairy skin bag. But that we're here to be human. We're here to have a human experience. And that I do believe that the people, the relationships, the circumstances are suited in a way that for us to best learn. I think then it just becomes our interpretation of things and our like what you were saying, like how willing am I to stay curious? And when people say curiosity, I mean, if you really tune into the energy of curiosity, it's like, it's wonder. It's like, it's not like, that the prejudged, like, it must be because I'm a bag of crap, or like because I'm there. That's the problem, I think, is when bad things happen, people see that as proof of their worthiness and all of that sort of stuff. And I just say, okay, well, what if that layer didn't exist? What if that assumption wasn't there, and it was, you actually held it with pure curiosity, which is like, whoa. Like before you even took on that, like, of course, it's because I'm not worthy or bad or da 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 da. Wow, that's in my space. I wonder what that's here to show me. I wonder what that's here playing out. I wonder what the invitation is usually what I say. What's that invitation? What's here for me to play with is even better, because then it really lightens the blame. Because I don't think we're here to be blamed. I've moved through a lot of those layers of like, wow, I used to take everything on. And I think that's an affliction of being empathic. What do you say to that?
Well, I realized that as I was saying before, I didn't clarify something that I want to be super clear about, and it ties into what you're just saying there, is that like not having protection doesn't mean not having boundaries. Because without boundaries, you're fucked, basically. And
print that on a shirt.
Basically, that's a great idea. But I feel like a lot of that stuff around, putting up, like bubbling up, or like putting a shield up or whatever, it's not bad. Like it's not wrong, because a lot of times those practices come from people who don't have good boundaries.
Yeah.
And they were super helpful for me when I didn't have any boundaries.
That is where I'm seeing the fit. Even just as we're talking, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense to me. In the beginning, when it's like, here's what I want to say. I need some time. I need some space. I need to feel intentional that I'm giving a shit about myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that would make a lot of sense to me if that is like the first place we go. For people on this journey of like, it's crazy, I have no boundaries. There are people moving their muddy feet across my white carpet, or muddying my white couch like Rick James in Dave Chappelle. It's like, so that feels like, I think that there's obviously a natural evolution to like, when that bubble fills, or when you start actually understanding, maybe that's the opportunity to start feeling your own stuff, to start taking care and having a more intimate, supportive relationship with yourself, to start to build your stores up, or to start actually bringing energy in that supports, serves, and can be amplified because of that protection. And then after that, then it's like, all right, let's try this, like almost like let's try this with the beep, like take that down. What do you think?
Yeah, because like if you've never had the experience of actually filtering everybody else's energy out of your own, and like really getting to know what your energy feels like without other people's stuff in it, and like we've all had other people's stuff in us since before birth. Like we literally spent 9 months coming into this world in somebody else's stuff, like literally in somebody else's stuff. And so it's like, until you have that sense, like it's almost, it's like you get to quiet your mind for a second, right? Like you get to quiet your energy for a second. Like, okay, no more is coming in. Now, what do I need to do to be able to filter it out? And where do I have holes in that filtration system that is allowing stuff in? Like, and that usually comes in the forms of like belief systems or relationships that are dysfunctional or work that's dysfunctional, like all that stuff. Like that's where all like that, like I want to please people and I want to mediate conflict and like make sure everything's okay. Those are the holes that let other people's stuff in.
That's right.
And
That's
so
the leaky bucket. It's like I call it the leaky bucket syndrome. I can spend a lot of time with people, helping them fill their bucket. There's a great book out there, a children's book about filling buckets. I can't think of the proper name right now, but it's about teaching kids about the practice of offering acknowledgments or compliments and how to receive compliments. And it's such a great book. I should read it on air. And you can start talking to kids about like, now do you think that empties my bucket or fills my bucket? Or do you think that empties your bucket or fills your bucket? And getting them to actually start tuning in. How does that feel? I mean, it's like, it's introducing that language, that blah, 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 that non-logical language and so early for them to actually be in their body more, which I think there's a whole nother like level of intelligence that's available to us and guidance from there.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it just felt like the leaky buckets. So what I said is we could do values work and talk about purpose and passion and like build all that stuff up. But if the agreements that you have in your life are like, oh, I still don't speak up when I'm in conflict or when I feel compromised, or like you said, I still believe that I'm here to please people, or I'm, all the up until nows. This is who I think I am and what I think I'm supposed to be and do here. That is just kind of, that's why I think some people can go round and round and feel like I'm trying to do all these things, but I'm not getting any further ahead.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see that picture of like if you're filling your bucket with like here's what I believe in, here's what I'm working toward, here's me taking care of myself, here's this and that, but there's a hole in the corner of the bucket where like you actually are just giving all your energy to like a dysfunctional relationship or to like this belief system that says like I'm inherently unworthy or whatever it is. All of that just goes right out. And it doesn't matter. You can keep piling it on forever. And you're like, why isn't anything changing? I'm doing all the things. Well, that's why.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, so the question then, I don't know if you put it in a question, but to me, I feel like the question would be the step one is almost like acknowledging where your energy is going up until now.
Yeah.
What would you add to that? It's like noticing.
I would say the first thing like there, even before getting to that, is like how, like, what am I experiencing in my energy in this moment? Mm-hmm. Like being present with what is first, and like recognizing that and getting to know, like, without trying to figure it out where it's going or where it has been. Like one of the first things that most of my clients end up doing is like, we say like, okay, observe your energy throughout the day. When does it drop? When do emotions come up? When do you, like, what thoughts go through your head? And what was happening right before that? Or what was happening? What were you thinking about right before that? And just looking at that, like really taking deep inventory of how, like, yes, your emotions, but like also like what sensations are present in your body. When do you get tight in your neck or in your tummy or whatever it is? And like, when do you notice your energy crashing? Like what, and there's so much that goes into it. But a lot of it has to do with like those energetic holes.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to people that are like, so I got this funny little hit that was like, oh my God, that sounds exhausting to tune into myself like that much. Or like, that feels like a lot to pay attention to, or like, it's hard enough when I'm like, yeah, like, I think that's when I think about people that are energetically kind of out there to like want to help and stuff. I think it's an interesting shift, taking inventory and getting them to monitor themselves. It's like creating a new relationship with themselves. Mm-hmm. What would you say to like that feeling of being overwhelmed by the process?
Well, you don't do it all in one day. Mm-hmm. Maybe you start with you check in once a day, check in a couple times a week. After a month, you start to get a pretty good picture. And a lot of times people know, like, especially empaths and highly sensitive people, you already know where your energy is going. You're just not looking at it because it's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Wow. So this is like, I mean, there's, again, I don't know. Does anybody have any specific questions? Because I could go.
There were some questions that popped up and disappeared.
Oh, really? I'm not seeing. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I didn't scroll up. Wow. Sorry. Where am I? God, Lord. Okay. Okay, thank you. So Vanessa's chiming in, says, I feel it can be really helpful to have someone there who can support you, but I also feel there's power in the process of doing it on your own, and that both are valid and needed at different times. I definitely agree with that.
I think, like, to clarify on that point, most of the work that I do, like, in that way is actually on my own, but having somebody I can be like, so here's what happened. Here's what I'm experiencing now. Or like, I don't know where to begin. Do you have a starting exercise for me that I can like get into this stuff? That to me is like priceless. Or even just be like, I did it. I need to tell somebody about it. Like, who can I tell that is impartial, you know? Yeah.
A lot of the times I want to, it's almost like pulling this awful like metaphor, but it's like lifting the skin off of a scab. It's like, 'cause that's really, it's like a wound, right? That needs to be expressed. Oh, that's so gross. But it's almost like if you can find that thing to just let it flow. I've had calls where we've laughed on like not such a great moment, but they understand that they can hold it, and they just, now all they have to do is move it, which might mean like curling up in a ball, having a good cry, punching some, you know, a pillow, or screaming into a pillow, or whatever it is, just to play with what helps move it, and then see what's at the end. Just having someone there up until that point to say, and, you know, check in with me in an hour, or check in with me afterwards and let me know what you discovered. So yeah, I agree. And Vanessa likes the hairy skin bag comment. So Janess, when I first started understanding what it meant to be empathic, I needed the dial to turn down the emotions, or to protect myself from taking on others' emotions. Now that I'm more comfortable in my own skin, when I have the WTF moments, I can explore why it impacted me so hard.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you for that. Yeah, really. Oh, and then thank you, Carolyn. The book is called "Have You Filled Your Bucket Today" by Carol McLeod. Great. Yeah. Right. So we're just going to wrap. Does anyone have any questions for us as we sort of, you know, bring it on home? Are there any? Oh gosh, we talked about so many things. Oh my God, did we ever? Because I'm like, oh, I wanted to ask about that. We have like 7 minutes left. But you know, what would you, okay, here's a question that I love to end on, which is, if you had this sort of cosmic billboard that everybody could see and receive a message from you, like, what's the thing that you wish you could take from what you know, Kate, and kind of impress upon them, where when they saw the sign, they understood something and they were changed by it? What would you want them to know around this stuff?
It's so funny because my first thought was that everybody would see a different message.
Yeah.
Because everybody, like, I know that's not your question, but like, but it was like,
why would they?
Yeah. Because everybody's in a different place, and not everybody needs to hear the exact same thing. Like, I could say something like, you're magic, or like, you know, everything you need is inside of you, which, yes, but those messages aren't going to hit home for everybody at the same time. And I really just feel like, my billboard would be this like ever changing, like glittery surprise experience that would just like give you the exact fortune cookie message that you needed at that moment. And like, it might be an image, it might be words, it might like whatever would give the person looking at it a feeling of, I am me and I am home.
Well, there's a message right there. It's like, I am me and I am home.
But that message is going to show up differently for everybody.
But that feels like that's your wish for them.
Yeah, you're home. You are home because you are you. It's not where you live, or who you spend time with or what you do. Those are pieces of it, but like ultimately you are your home. Your body is your home. And like, why wouldn't you want to have the best relationship with your body and yourself possible? Because that's the only thing that doesn't change throughout your life. It's the only thing that like doesn't get taken away from you is yourself and your body until you die, basically.
Yeah. And it speaks to something I talk about with people is it's just that metaphor of your home. What state is your home in? You know, how does your home feel? You know, we've got all these different rooms, and when we don't do or be what you and I are talking about, when we don't sort of surrender and open up to what is and start, because sometimes we just want to walk through the well-worn paths of our house and like not look up at the stuff we're hoarding. You know, people's houses are going to be in different states. Like you said, there's like a unique kind of feel. Because what can happen over time is if you don't pay attention to all that stuff, you don't tune in and you don't sort of take responsibility, not blame, but like, I want to say ownership, but that can get a little sticky as well, because then people kind of feel like blame is there, which I don't feel. It's just like, if it's in you, it's there for you to pay attention to and either send out like you did. It's like, please remove anything that isn't mine and to begin again. When we don't do that, we end up sort of closing off those doors in our life, like this mansion, and we only live in like the kitchen, and we have like a path to the bathroom and like maybe a little corner of the living room, because all this stuff can just build up. Because this is your home and it is worthy of your love and your attention and your care, to make it clear and spacious for you to expand and even have extensions, like to start like actually building the house of your dreams where you can move around and like, yeah. What would you add to that?
I think that I would add that part of the reason that this is like the energy work and understanding how to clear your own energy and getting to know what is in your body and how your body wants to support you is a lot of times the tendency is to pile on more stuff, more trainings or seminars or more books or more, even like for me for a long time, it was like more adventures, like the more places I go, then I'll find myself. Right. And really, that's not the answer, especially if you're already full, of other like beliefs and lifestyle choices and like patterns that you've had for so long. It's like, if you want to fully use all that you have and, you know, like be in that space of creation and living and like, yeah, magic and possibility, like magic and possibility aren't going to show up nearly as much if like there's dust and clutter all over the place, right? Like they're going to show up when things are sparkling and bright and clean and open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean you have to be sparkling and bright all the time, right? It's not that at all. It's more just like, what can we do to clear out as much as possible? And then do whatever you need to do to maintain that sense of self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And in my experience, it's been everything from tuning into my emotions to feeling them to like unpacking them and having them just by being honored and felt. It actually expands that room open. So the room of shame, I'm not so afraid to go into it anymore, because I've gone into it with either support or with a lot more grounding or openness or curiosity. And so instead of being afraid of it and avoiding it, it's like, you don't scare me so much. I've spent some time with you, or anger or whatever it is. And that's where, whether it's expressing my emotions or even taking action, there's a lot of different ways that all of a sudden the house can just feel incredibly clearer because of that, because beliefs fall away. It's almost like that burning it all down feeling. Like I had a year of like where experiences happen to us sometimes, I honestly believe this, to completely come out and like burn things down without our permission, without our consent, because there is no way we would take forever to do it. If we were involved at all, we'd be like, oh, but just, it's like when someone comes in and says, oh, you need to get rid of all of your tchotchkes. And we're like, oh, but I'm really attached to that, person or whatever. It would take forever. And I've experienced it a few times where, wow, boy, did life, thank God, come in and just make dramatic changes that had me, like a cartoon character, just like, I can't even bother trying to keep up with what just happened. So what's here? And just noticing, moving through, I guess, the initial points of loss or like change and like, oh my gosh, what's here now? And there's a lot of emotion that will come from it, but realizing, wow, that there's like some space here that wasn't there before because of this thing that I can't control anyway. Like, and then to me, there's a choice of like, well, what do I want to let in now? Now that I've got the space, it's like almost a sense of choice where there is more choice, there are more awareness. With more awareness becomes more choice about what I have in my home, what I keep in my home, and what it's almost the donate, toss, or keep, right? So yeah, I think it's very important. So how can, so tell us a little bit about how people can connect with you and maybe anything that you're up to that you want to share, and I'll share your website.
Yeah, totally. I'm on Facebook a lot. You can friend me or follow me or whatever. If you do, like, I always tell people, if you friend me, tell me, like, send me a message, because I get lots of requests. So just like, tell me where you came from, and then I'll be happy to like hang out and chat and whatever. Yeah, I'm on Instagram a lot too. Same thing, Kate Marolt. Like, I'm the only person with my name that I know of, so you can find me really easily. It's nice. And what I'm up to, I just living right now. I work with people one-on-one. I run some groups. I run retreats every once in a while, and I love it. I'm going to Costa Rica in a couple days to go run a retreat. It's going to be great.
Gosh, those women are very lucky.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kate, for being here. And thank you, everybody. Keep the questions coming if you've got them. If anything sort of came up for you and it's sort of like, oh, what, you guys said something there that it triggered this, that thought, or that thought. Please keep the conversations going and tag Kate or I, we're tagged anyway because we're in the posts, and we'll keep, we'll chime in and share, or help in whatever way we can. So yeah, anything you want to say before we go, Kate?
Thank you. This is always fun. I love talking about this stuff.
Thank you for being here. Thanks, everybody, and have a great week ahead. Take care of your energy, and do what you can to sort of nurture that house and keep it feeling as special as it is. Because I think that's really what we're saying, is that, that is your home, and it is so worthy and valid of your care and attention. So in all things daring, thank you so much. Thanks, Kate. Bye, everybody.
Bye.